I did a really well-received webinar a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I did two versions of it, and it was super well received. It was a mixture of different agentic AI systems, including Claude Code, Claude Cowork, and OpenClaw. And that was so well received, I thought I would do a deep dive on Claude Cowork. Since that webinar, it has come out on Windows. And that really makes it much more ubiquitous, and the ability for it to be able to be seen and used by everyone. It's not available yet for Unix, but it's available for the majority of the people that don't use Unix. I think that that's really interesting. You'll see they've also increased the capability with Claude Cowork to be able to use plugins. And I'm going to provide a couple of plugins for you that I think are really innovative and will help how you run your business. And so with that in mind, we'll jump right into it. So here's what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through where the agent spectrum does Cowork fit, what is Cowork, a deep dive into what it is, setup and navigation, how do you navigate, how do you give it queries, and how is it different than navigating through the normal Claude. And then we're going to go through 6 demos, and that seems like a lot now that I'm looking at it. So we're going to, last time I did 7 and I thought that was too many, so I was not going to put as many in, but I only put 6 this time. And then we're going to talk a little bit about safety limits, what's coming next, and then question and answer and my special offer that we talked about earlier. So the agent spectrum, where does Cowork fit in? It fits in the middle of this chart. Level 1 of this chart is the standard LLM chats that you're used to using, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. I call those the big 3. 95% of people are stopped there. Level 2 is working with managed assistant agents. And there are several out there now. Gemini has its own, ChatGPT has its own. But Cowork is special in that they have really put it in a nice sandbox in a way that it can use tools that pushes it farther than its peers. And that's the reason I want to present it to you today. These managed agents allow you to describe an outcome, and Claude will plan the steps, execute those steps, and deliver you the finished work without asking you about all the intermediate steps. And you've seen some of this in the standard LLM, like if you want it to build a document or you want it to build a web page for you, it can do some of that. But what it can't do is use files on your system and multi-level tools and other things. And then the last step is fully autonomous agents, and that's OpenClaw, as you know, has gone crazy. It's hit 175,000 GitHub stars in its first 2 weeks. It's really powerful, but it has a lot of security risks and not very much governance framework. And so I dissuade folks that aren't super technical from loading it. So this is your way to step in with some agency over your LLMs without getting into that security mire. So this expands on that. Why is Cowork the right move now? So it's reviewed and safe. Really, Anthropic is the safest LLM system today. They have the best enterprise security, and especially if you buy the team version for your company, it's the security is on by default, sharing is off by default, and you can share across your teams. You don't have to set up anything extra. There's no servers needed, and you can build ahead of your competitors. So what I want you to be able to do after today is be able to set up and configure Cowork. I want you to run projects and outcomes through it to show that its capabilities. Install and configure custom plugins and build repeatable workflows that enhance your firm's methodology. You can build your own custom plugins and skills just by using Claude Cowork. So you don't need coding. You don't need any type of technical experience. Everything that we're going to do today is going to be for non-coders. So Cowork, a deeper dive. So behind Cowork is a full agentic architecture without the terminal. The terminal is where you pull up the text prompt and you type in those archaic commands that the programmers love. So you don't have to do that anymore. You just point at a folder and it's sandboxed, which means it can only use that folder for that time that you're using it. And that's one of the keys, is it always stays secure in the folder that you give it. And it's important to pick the folder that you're going to use it in every time that you use it. And that's why it's important that you have this type of agentic use inside the tool, because you're getting the same features as Claude Code inside of Claude Cowork. And so how is it different than a regular chat? In normal chat, you ask and it responds. And in Cowork, you set a goal. You set an outcome. It breaks that outcome into smaller goals. And then those goals go through until it gets to the final outcome. And you'll see that actually happening on the screen. It has a full stack of extensibility to where you can create pieces and parts that it can call on. And the first one of those is skills. Now, skills have been available inside of normal Claude for a while. In fact, skills have been adopted across all of the major LLMs as a actual feature that they're all converging on. So that's the skill definition that Claude put out and how they're all using. Connectors are the way to connect into your email, Google Drive, Slack. That also is available in normal Claude, and whatever you set up there, Claude Cowork can use. One of the major additional pieces that Claude Cowork has that the normal Claude doesn't have is plugins, and that's bundled skills, connectors, additional commands, documents, and subagents that specialize into a package to do a set of work. And that's one of the really cool parts, is that there are default plugins that you can use, and there are custom plugins that, like the ones that I'm going to show you, that you could build one for your company, and this custom plugin then could be shared with everyone. And that custom plugin then would be a way to put Claude Cowork on Rails so that it can then be done the same way over and over again. Okay, who needs this? Knowledge workers that are doing any kind of multi-step knowledge work. They're tired of being the glue between the LLM and the documents. And any kind of professional service firms that are doing knowledge work, they definitely need it for sure. Operational leaders doing back-end work, consistent reporting, those are the types of people that need it. And I would say even salespeople, even though I didn't put that on, salespeople, marketing people, a lot of the front-end people that do the same type of continual work, okay? Who gets it? Now, what's great is everybody pretty much gets it. Mac and Windows and all paid plans, the Pro plan, the Max plan, and the Team plans and the Enterprise plans. So every plan on every platform gets it. Last month, they added it to the Pro plan. This month, they put out Windows. So Anthropic and Claude specifically is really pushing to try and make this a way for companies to use these agentic features and in a way that they can't do unless they dip their toe into that coding side. So this is a great way for you to do that. And I think this is one of the reasons that the stocks have lost some wind in their sails on the SaaS side, is because Claude Cowork came out. I think people have seen how easy it is to do some of this stuff. Okay, so set up a navigation tour. So you download Claude Desktop. You cannot do this on the web. You have to be on the desktop version, Mac or Windows. You open the app and you'll see 3 tabs. And I'm going to pull it over now because I want you to see this. Then you click on the Claude. You click on the Cowork in the center, and then you select your working folder for beginning, and that's really important. And we talked about what's on the right side. It's in a container, and we're not going to push that anymore because I've said that a couple of times. But think about it as giving a contractor access to the one room in your whole building, but not the whole building. So they've got an access card. So here it is. And on the left, you see things that you've run before, which I'll hide, and you can add new plugins and start new tasks and search across everything that you've done. But you get your normal chat here, and you get Cowork here, and you get code here. So when you pick Cowork, you have to pick a folder that you're going to work in. And at the very bottom, which is important, you can scroll all the way down and choose your folder. And you can also add in projects, connectors, and plugins that you want to use with this specific query that you're running. Okay. What are the difference between plugins, connectors, and projects? So plugins, as I talked about, is the plugin button at the top left bar, which we just saw. You can add new plugins by pressing the plus button once you've pressed on that, and you can download plugins that you've made or other people have made, and you can browse the built-in plugins from Claude. And if we look at that and we click on that again, we click on customize. So now you can browse plugins and you can click on personal and you can add your own personal here and you can click on your organization. So now they have organization plugins. This is brand new in this demo. They just added it. So now when you have the enterprise version, you can have organizational plugins here. But I've actually loaded all of the, or most, many. They've already added new, like Apollo is a brand new plugin since I've last looked at this. And Brand Voice is a brand new plugin since I last looked at this. So these are ones that I've loaded. These are ones I still can load. And you just click install over them, and then you can put them in. And so everything is changing faster than I can even do a demo. But that's how it works. So super simple. So you just go to customize and then click on plugins or click on tools, skills, plugins. And tools are going to be integrating with the tools that you have, which is connectors. Skills are going to be skills that are added into your system. And then you can see I have a ton of skills. And then plugins are what we just went through. So if we look back at that on this is exactly what we just talked about. Plugins, connectors. Connectors are tools like your web connectors built in, but the desktop extensions are things like navigating and notes and other things. And then there's hundreds of other ones available. Gmail, Outlook, Google Drive, AWS, HubSpot. There's tons of connectors, and that way Claude Cowork can see your tools working. You can also access projects, as I showed. If you pick a project while you're on the query, then it will include that project in your work that you're doing. So that can be a project that you created prior in Claude, normal Claude. Okay, key interface elements. So you get live progress indicators, which we'll see on the right-hand side as it's working. And during the task, you can steer it mid-task. You used to have to press a button steer, but as of the last couple of days, if you send it a note or a message while it's doing a task, it'll just pick that up. And then finally, there's deletion protection. Claude will ask you explicitly before it deletes any files. And typically on Windows and Mac, those files go into the deleted, so you don't lose them, but they would come out of your folder, but there's multiple protections there for it. Okay, let's do the demonstrations now. I have several folders set up, and I'm going to go to the folder so you can see me choosing the folders. So mine are under Documents, and then the Claude Cowork and the webinar. And then I have, these are the 6 demos that we're going to go through today. So expenses, I have just put in a set of expenses, and we could actually look at some of those. And what you have to always do is pick allow when you pick a folder. So I'll go to the same spot, Documents, and then Claude Cowork, and then webinar and expenses. And these are from 2022 when I worked for a different company, but I'm a pack rat, so it's really good. So to have them just sitting around, but they are really messy. You can see they're Uber expenses, and they are a Southwest airline expense, and they are a Four Seasons hotel. I was working for a hotel company at the time, so I got to stay in the Four Seasons that day, which was nice. And so what we can do is and I'm going to make this prompt upon the spot. We can say something like, please review these expenses and build an Excel file that will categorize them by category and date and description and total amount, and then total that. So I use my voice to text program that I have to put that in, so I don't have to type it. And then it will start. And this is what you can see on the right-hand side. You can see it beginning the task process, it's using your instructions. It's checking what expense piles you have. It's finding any skills that it has. So now you can see everything that it's using over here. And now it's building up, it sees the 7 receipts. And now it's pulled them in. It's pulled in the 7 receipts. And then you'll start to see it make a plan up here. And we'll wait for it to create that plan till we go on to the next demo. We're going to be doing a demo. This demo might not take very long, but some of them will take a little longer. Okay, there it is. Extracted the PDFs already. It's built into Excel and it's verifying the format. So I tell you what, we may just wait on this one just so that you can see a full run through it. And this will take about 30 seconds, maybe a little bit less. So it's building the Excel. And you should expect agentic work on your computer, no matter what agent you're using, to take longer than your normal queries because it's doing different types of work. It's not doing your standard query answer. It's actually building Excel. You can see that it's created an Excel called MiamiTripExpenses.com. It's created it, and we can open in Microsoft Excel. We have to say aloud, again, Claude Cowork, make sure that we give it permissions to everything that we do. And so now we're going to open that up, and I'll pull it over here. And you can see that it's created the expense report, summarized it by category, and you don't have to do anything that you would normally have to do, type all that in. So that's demo number 1. We're going to get more complex. So meeting research, and I am going to have to run this with notes because I have the query in the notes here. So perfect. And here is the query that we're going to use. And we will do the same thing. We're going to start a new task. We just click new task, and then we will click into a new folder. Choose a different folder. We're going to go into the same folder structure, but pick a different folder that we did before. And we're going to pick the meeting research folder. And I'm going to tell it that I have a CBRE, which I don't have CBRE meeting today. In fact, I don't have CBRE as a client. Before researching, ask me some questions, then research and show me these things, and then show me an outline 1-pager with the 3 to 5 most important points. This may be something that you could do in Claude, but it's going to work better in Claude Cowork because it's going to use all the tools that it has at its disposal. Okay, one of the most beautiful parts of Claude Cowork, instead of having to type, it gives you multiple choice, which is the way that Claude Code also works. And so this is a really cool part. You can click now, just pitching our services. Are you thinking about, I'm trying to close, advance a deal and establish establish credibility. So you can pick more than one and build a relationship. And then it's going to say most useful to know, key people and backgrounds and competitive positioning. And then we're going to say, I do consulting for AI. Now notice I didn't have to pick. I can actually type in below. And then I don't have the names yet. And so it'll try and find the names for me. So now it's writing, and it's created a much longer plan, and it's going to run that plan. And while it runs that plan, we can do something else, which is fun. Okay, so now that we've approved it, it goes through discovery and we approve it, and it does a focused output. And that's what I wanted to show you is if you write your prompt to ask you questions, it'll run through those questions. So this is the next one. We're going to do a demo of a contract review, but we're going to use the built-in plugin for legal contract review. And then what I want you to watch for is that it does clause by clause risk identification. And this is interesting. It doesn't replace a lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer, and Claude is certainly not a lawyer, but it is neat what it can do. Now, this is not a real contract, and I've created a few files for demonstration purposes, and one of those was an employment engagement, and we're going to use that file as an example. And we will start that in a new version, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm actually using new task. And I want to make sure I use the right folder. So we're going to pick the new folder, and because this What's key is that the folder has your documents in it. The folder has all the context. So always make sure that you're starting in the right folder. And so we're going to go to the contract review, and the contract has that one executive employment agreement in it. And I am just going to say using now, and then say review the employment agreement in this directory. And then I'll say, let's go. And then it's going to go and do that. It may ask us some questions. So while it's doing that, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't have anything to ask me before I go on. And so you can see now it's using the contract review skill, the Microsoft Office Word skill, and then the instructions that we just gave it, and it knows what it's supposed to do. Oh, it's actually asked me, proposed one-page outline. Here's the 5 points. And I say, that looks great. That looks great. And I'll let it roll. And then the employment review is asking me a few questions. We're going to juggle a little bit because try not to juggle too much. So that we're looking at this from the employer side, and then we're going to tell it we're just want to look at the general standards, because you can set up a playbook in the contract review skill and it will review against your playbook. So if you have like NDA terms that you always have and you're reviewing NDAs all the time, put your key NDA terms like I want to make sure it has a non-compete, and I want to make sure that we protect somebody from ripping up our software and decomposing it. If you want to have those in your NDA, then you can have them in your NDA special terms. You can actually work with the skill and fix those skills inside of Claude Cowork. Okay, let's go back and check the CBRA. So he has got everything done and he's just building the one pager. So we're going to wait on these two before we go on to the next few. So Susan Stamper, when you give permissions to Claude Cowork to give it a specific area, files, Outlook, what is the best practice to retain confidentiality of the data? So I talked about this a little bit. You make sure that in your Claude settings, if you're running on personal, that you have privacy set up not to use the help improve Claude. So keep that off if you're using the private version. It's on by default a lot of the time, that you need to just keep checking that. But if you're on an enterprise Claude version, then it will not be on, period. So if you're using Teams or enterprise, it's off. It's really good. So another way to do it is just to obfuscate out all the client details and have it do the work, and then just put the client details back in if you are worried. So that is another way to do it. A lot of people do it that way. And so let's just go back now to our sideboard and see if any of these are done. So this one is done. So this is our meeting brief. So we'll open up our meeting brief and I will pull it into the window, and you can see now that it did a really good job of the meeting brief, who the parent company is, who the DFW market leader is, market position, key verticals, recent moves, 2026 outlook, AI landscape, what they're doing in AI, the industry AI paradox, competitive pressure from other people, the opportunity, what I can sell into them, and then the key people again, the rest of the key people besides the one I put at the top. Sean Cook just asked, can you set up a style guide to set up to help the output docs, or is that the Claude default? That was just what Claude made up this time. But if you did have an output, you could put it in that same folder and say, and tell the skill at some point to use that folder, and it would modify to use that output style. And it would modify the skill to always use that output. It's really smart and can change the skills on the fly for future use. This is the reason Claude Cowork is better than chat. So that's one of the amazing parts about it. So let's look at the employee review. And so this again will be in Word. This is the employee contract review. And you can see it created an executive summary. It by clause, it tells you Article 1 duties, standard, all green. But if we go down here to red, it will tell without that it has a without clause that the equity acceleration during this severance period could be very expensive, considering removing or capping. So that's something that would hurt the company. So that's a good for it. And then there's a few other of those. But you can see it's a pretty detailed. This is the high level view up here, but then it goes through clause by clause, telling you the rationale And so this is a not a lawyer, but a good first step before you go see your lawyer. A couple of more questions on the right. Just for perspective on usage, at which point, how many of the demos are you showing today? Would you run out of usage on the Pro? On the Pro, you could run what I'm running without running out of usage. You could run all the demos that I'm running in your 3-hour plan, 3 hours. With a max $100, you'd be able to run these all day long. I have the $200 plan and I code all day long with Claude. So that's just a view. Could I use it to organize my photos? Yes, for sure. I didn't show that because everybody shows it, but you can point it at a directory and say, organize these files for me, and it will and categorize them. It will move the top photos in the categories and look at them all and do exactly that. But it will do it. Like if you're one of those people that has the disaster desktop, I call it, I only have a couple of files on my desktop. But if you have the disaster desktop or the disaster downloads directory, just point it at that directory and say, clean that directory up for me. I didn't show that demo today because that's such an easy demo and so many people run it. But it's the default demo. But don't go do it for yourself. Okay, build a marketing plan. This is where it's starting to get complex. And we're going to do a little bit more juggling because these demos start to take longer to build. Okay, what I'm showing is that you can use its built-in skills without telling it to use the skill. I'm just going to say use all your skills, and I'm going to give it the details that I created for a company just by doing research. I created a lot of files of information, but I hadn't created the final marketing plan. And what I'm going to ask it to do is use and this is for that same company that I talked about before, Pervolta. I'm going to tell it to use my brand guide, which I'm going to put in. I'm going to tell it to use the detailed marketing plan, and I'm going to tell it to build it. And so you'll see, I'm going to write this prompt in real time too. Cross your fingers. I haven't done this one. Every time I do it, it comes out differently. And so these are so much fun. And so we're going to do the same thing. Documents, Claude Cowork, webinar, and then we're going to go to the marketing plan. So now it has the logo, the customer profile, go-to-market execution playbook, some LinkedIn posts, the brand messaging, and the brand identity, but it doesn't have a marketing plan. And so what I wanted to do now is build me a marketing plan in PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is open that folder, allow it, and I'm going to say, this is a lot of market research, brand identity, and my logo for Pervolta. Please build me a detailed marketing plan in PowerPoint that I could present to my executive leadership. Okay, and that we will get going, and it's going to ask me some questions. I'm sure it is. While we're doing that, and while it's thinking about the questions, you guys have gotten the gist. We're gonna give it a hint right here. We're gonna say, make sure you use all of your marketing skills that you have built in, if any. I don't know if it has marketing skills built in, but I wanted you to see that you could give it instructions along the way and see it says, good note, let me pull in all the marketing skill guidance before building. Okay, now it's got campaign planning and competitive analysis and pulled those in, which it didn't have pulled in before. So I saw that it didn't pull them in and I gave it direction along the way. Super, super important. Okay. And we'll just let that roll because it seems like it's got enough information. It should have enough information. And if it doesn't, it'll tell me in a second when we come back to it. I'm going to show you 2 more demos, and they are of the 2 custom plugins that I'm going to share with you when this is done. I'm going to tell you how you get them. The first one is a custom decision maker. I built this based on 6 different decision workflows, decision frameworks. One of them is a multi-pronged decision framework where it may give you back several different answers and compare and contrast those answers. Another is a weighted balance, which everybody's done. So you give properties and you weight those properties, and every one of your choices gets different scales on those weighted outcomes, and then you multiply it all out. It will do that. What you do is you tell it what kind of decision you're trying to make, and it will automatically pick the right decision-making framework. Now, the cool part is I pulled off the internet all the human biases, and I think it's somewhere around 50. And it checks in real time to make sure as you're making your decision, if you're hitting against any of the biases. So it has built-in confirmation bias, all the different types of biases that you could ask for, pricing bias, first glance bias, all of these biases, so that you don't get stuck in decisions that you shouldn't get stuck in. So that is the way that works. And so we'll take a look at that, and so everything is running on that. So we'll start a new one, a new task, and we'll tell it which folder. You're getting used to this by now, aren't you? I'm going to get back to some of those questions at the end. I want to try and get all of these running so that we know that they're working. Claude Code, and then we're going to go into the decision skill. And I think that's an empty folder. It's not. So it's got a bunch of stuff in it, and that's okay. I'm not going to run any of this, and it won't use it, but it's got the decision skill itself in and some other things, but that's not going to hurt it. I'm going to allow it. And what I'm going to tell it this time is to absolutely use the decision skill. And we'll tell it we want to, and it's going to actually just start telling us, asking us once we picked it, what are you facing? And let's just say we're doing a hiring decision, and we are picking between, we'll just say, we're picking between two different executive vice president sales candidates. One has much more skill. He's 20 years into the job, but his communication skills aren't very good. And he's not quite as good a closer as the other, but he knows the market better. The other guy, let's call him candidate 2, is a much better closer, and he has better communication skills, but he seems to me like the kind of guy that wouldn't follow up in a CRM. Why don't we figure out what kind of decision matrix we would need to use and walk through these together? Now you'll see it'll start up the side skill, which is started over here. And you could see in that same plugin that it has a lot of different kinds. See, it's reading biases. It's already put its command in for biases and decision router. So it's trying to figure out now. It uses all the pieces of its plugin to figure out. And good, you've already given me the core of it. The EVP sales hire to finalists. Given this as a C-suite hire, I'll also run a pre-mortem. Okay, what else? You're seeing already the power of this, one of the best parts is that you don't have to think through the framework, which is one of the things I love about this, is that it's going to pick, we can already tell it's going to pick the weighted matrix, which it uses a lot of the time because I tend to use weighted matrix type decisions. And now what it's going to do is it's going to propose the criteria for the weighted matrix: marketing knowledge, closing ability, communication skills, sales process discipline, leadership, and team building, and ramp up speed. Those are the 6 criteria, and that's going to ask us to weight them. So you've built these before, but look how much faster we're able to build this with the skill. And it's going to weight them for us. And we're going to say those seem right or they don't seem right. I'm going to say those look right. Closing ability should be the highest, of course. And I like market knowledge being second. And these other ones being like that and ramp up speed, these really look good. I mean, I don't know if I would have done better. Those weightings are always subjective anyway. So we'll just see how it comes out. And if I don't like it, I change the weight. Isn't that how it always goes on these decision metrics? Okay. Candidate 1 seems like a 7 to 8, given his 20. Yeah. So now you can actually say, C1 8, C1 9, C2 5. We can just do it like that. We'll just do it like that through the whole thing. Okay. Closing ability. There it goes. Now it's picked up on our way to do it. Okay. I like the 1 and 2. Well, that seems about right. And now it's picked up on our way of doing it. And it told us a bias flag. When comparing side by side, we tend to overrate differences. A stick versus a 9 is meaningful, but make sure candidate 2's closing is truly exceptional and not just better than C1 in a demo. Okay, so these are biases. It's a distinction bias, and it's told us that, and it's flagged it as low. So all along the way, and at the end, it'll give us all these biases. Okay, for communication skills, how would you rate each? And I'm going to say candidate 1 is relatively low. He's a great guy, but this is one of his low points. Okay. And then we're just going to click through the rest of these really quick so that we can get this done and go on to the next one. Process discipline, we'll just keep them pretty close. And then on leadership and team building, we'll say that they're about the same. And then finally, experience advantage, ramp up speed. The experienced guy is better, but not by much. Okay. Please try and reload the task. I am in a demo, please. It's never done that before. I'm going to come back to that because I really don't want to run through that again, but we will if we have to. Okay. It may ask me the questions again, and if it does, we'll go through them again. And then the last skill, I'll vamp a little bit on the last skill. I'll always do that, is a virtual advisory board. The virtual advisory board, it simulates feedback of well-known thinkers and leaders, and you can use leaders in your community. And you can give it perspectives and stress test. And what is cool about this is it has a setup skill and then it has a run skill. So you set it up and you tell it who you want. And I'm not going to set it up, but when you get the skill, you can set it up and then you can run the skill. And I am going to run the directory, and I'm going to actually pick the virtual advisory board here because it is special. It's got my virtual advisory board built into it already. And I'm going to include the plugin virtual advisory board, not create, but the actual virtual advisory board skill. Okay. And then this lets me consult my virtual advisory board, and I can ask it anything. I can ask it, what do you think about creating a new marketing strategy for AI where I would do webinars where I teach people how to use Claude Cowork and other skills? We'll ask it about today's webinar and see if it was a good idea. I think it's a good idea. They will not think it is a good idea because they think I'm too spread thin. Okay, so now I pull up my advisory board profiles and it reads my advisory board. So it's already found my company profile and my advisory board members, which is what you create with the create skill. So if you run the setup skill, it will create these for you and you just go back in the same directory and it'll run. So here's my directors. Ben Horowitz says, Brad, I need to challenge this before you go anywhere. You're in wartime. You're trying to create, mid-sized businesses, and you're trying to create this pipeline, and instead of selling, you're off doing marketing. And Steve Jobs says, no, not at least like this. Vanessa Ogle, one of my best mentors, she's actually somebody in town that was able to make her, because she has written enough, and she said, run one webinar. And she really says run one webinar a month, which is what I do. And then Simon Sinek always asks why, because that's sort of his gig. And then Jeb Blunt, which is my sales guy on here, is sales pipeline, blah, 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 sales. And then it will give me a sense. So really at the end of this always tells you is based on what you put into it, on what you get out of it. And so let's now look, please. Okay, we built the PowerPoint for this one. So this is the great marketing plan in that it built. So this is that product that I'm thinking about launching for lawyers. And it read all that data and built this marketing plan, including the brand identity, pulled off marketing position, go-to-market strategy, channel strategy, content, thought leadership, target pipeline, sales process, could see key KPIs, budget and investment, next steps. Now, some of this was in there, some of it taught up on its own. But what it did do is it created this beautiful PowerPoint all on its own. Now it's just saying present final files to user. So it's trying to do it. It knows it's supposed to do it, and we'll see if it gets done. And while it's doing that, it's building. There it is. It's finally did it. This skill spits out an HTML. And it just happens that candidate 1, candidate 2 get a 6.55. What is the chance of that with the weightings that I put in? My goodness, I am good. I did not plan it that way, but the math worked out to be 6.55 exactly each. It's a tie. We don't know who to pick. What a terrible decision. But it creates this cool little graphic for you, and the results, don't forget, the results are fragile. Just a shift in one, as we know, would actually put one above the other, and it gives you risks, and it gives you your bias audit, and breaking the tie, 3 questions that decide it, and it gave you the decision block. So all of this is logged and saved in that file, and that will be the end of the demos. And I will stop sharing. We've got 10 minutes to answer questions, and I will start with the people that waited patiently for theirs to be answered in the chat. And I was on, let's see, does Claude Cowork read PDFs for content? It reads PDFs for content, reads everything for content. You can put everything in. Follow-up question on the media aspect. It will watch videos with the right skills and analyze them. And what I would suggest on videos is if you have a list of videos that you wanted to analyze, put those into what's called Notebook LM, which is a Google product that's free if you have a Google account, and have it watch all the videos, summarize them, and spit out a summary that you then pull in to Claude Cowork. If you have the pro plan, what would be within the limits of number of runs? We talked about that. Do you use Opus for everything? I am using Opus for everything right now, but Sonnet 4.6 would be good enough for almost everything that we just did. I am lazy and I have the $200 plan and I don't like to change it. Okay. Live demos always work flawlessly. Yes, everybody got to see the real world errors and how I got through it. And that was great because we did get through it. I just kept asking. I kept just forcing through it. And Mike pointed out that Sonnet outperforms it in some areas, but I think it's 9 out of 10 that Opus wins on. And I don't even remember what the 1 out of 10 one was. But for the average person and the things that we did today, even that last one with the decision matrix, Sonnet would do a massively good job. Okay, so I think that this was cool. Let the board know that that it was wrong. Okay, business development is always worth the time, Brad. Do you run into hallucinations with Cowork? You run into hallucinations with all types of LLMs, and this is just an LLM behind it. So you have to watch for hallucinations. But what I would say is with the newest LLMs, you are seeing less and less hallucinations because they're checking themselves. They're using references because they're looking at the web, and these skills give them more references. And so there's still less hallucination. Easily, we're all getting overwhelmed with the marketing message. And so we need to go and shake more hands and meet more people and make more phone calls. And so I just wrote that article, a nice 4 or 5 page article, and I was writing it yesterday with LinkedIn. It was well researched, and I looked at all of the links. But when the AI helped me pull together the list of links for me, it hallucinated every link. Again, I went to click them in the final article because I check all the work that we do together. It does help me do some of the writing, and it does help me do some of the research. But I go back and check everything, and every one of the links was hallucinated. So you should always check hallucinations. If anybody wants to ask questions verbally, I have turned on the ability to take yourself off mute, and you can also show the picture if you would rather show your picture. Hey, Ted.
So a lot of people I've talked to have found that instead of having more time, they actually have less time now that they're doing all these cool things with AI. Obviously getting more done, but less time. What are you finding in terms of productivity, and has it led to a better work-life balance? Or are you like constantly babysitting this thing? Just curious.
I think that we're in a strange spot between the humanness and the AIs at the moment. And I am a terrible example because right now I'm working 15 to 16-hour days because I am having so much fun. So, and that's terrible work-life balance. But I feel very humbled by it. Every day is the right word, because I get more done in a day than I used to get done in a couple of weeks. But what can happen, and I've talked to others, and it's happened with me, and I go in cycles, is that burnout is a real thing because the human brain isn't meant to do 2 weeks worth of work in a day. That just the consumption of that much work and putting it out and having to look at things. And it's like directing an employee that never gets tired, always comes back very fast, and you feel like you have to keep it going. And that's the one thing I've had to tell myself, is that you don't have to keep these employees going all the time. They're there for you when you need them, but you don't have to keep them working. Because in the beginning, I was trying to keep it working all the time, and I overwhelmed myself by doing that. And so I think that's a good balance to think about. So I think we're in this transition stage where we
Great advice. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how to work with it very well yet. And so I think we're all learning, and that's what I've learned so far. But I am in the journey, and so anybody that has additional things is welcome to chime in and tell me what their journey is. So Dan, how about you? Dan is one of my friends from Innovating with AI, a program that I am certified, and Dan is certified, and he's one of the key guys in that program. What's up, Dan?
Hey Brad, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. One quick question. I did see that it does connect with Google Drive. Can I point this at a Google Drive folder instead of a folder on my computer and have it work the same way?
Here's the wonderful part. When you actually use the Google Drive tool, you can just say, go find my marketing plan. You don't have to. If it's on Google Drive, it'll find it. Yeah. And that's, by the way, the same. If you use the connector to Google Drive or Gmail inside of Claude or Claude Cowork or Claude Code, it will find it automatically. It uses that. So I don't think Claude Code, I think Claude Code, you have to repoint it, but Claude Cowork and Claude will both use the same connector and automatically use those connectors when you want to use them. The Gmail it uses automatically. The Google Drive, you have to tell it. But once you tell it to search, you can just say search Google Drive. You don't have to you click on the connector in that little bar that I said. You can just say search my G Drive for my marketing plan, and it'll search. And if it can't find it, then you can actually cut and paste the link into like just the title. You don't have to go to this share button or anything. You just go and cut and paste the URL into it because it has the full access now. I can just go straight to it. You don't find a document ID and just go get it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That sounds good. Cool.
Okay, can it link to Dropbox folders? With the correct skill, it can link to Dropbox folders. And that connector for Dropbox works the same way that it does for the G Drive. So if you get the connector, then it would work very similar to just what I said. Do you risk Claude Cowork wiping your Google Drive? Claude, you do a little bit, but it's very, very small risk. Just don't tell it to delete files on your Google Drive. I would never tell it to do anything like that on the Google Drive. It can only delete things where you tell it, and certainly on your local drives, it can only delete files in that one folder and the subfolders. Can you use subfolders? Yeah, I missed that one. I remember seeing it. And if I missed your question, because the questions are coming faster than I can answer them, they can use all the subfolders that you put in that we use. Mm-hmm. How are you finding the reception from lawyers? The main reception from lawyers is the reason that I built that program is they don't want to use the large language models because the client privilege question hasn't been decided. If you put it in a large language model or you blind client privilege, there's no law on that, and they're all freaked out about that. So having a local LLM will fix that, and that's the product I'm trying to sell.
Hey, Brad, I have a quick question. Was Claude your primary large language model prior to Claude Cowork coming out, or did you switch over to Claude after all of this hype?
I have always been I use the best tool for the job. And so I keep Gemini and OpenAI and Claude all up at once. And I think that they all have different purposes for different reasons. And some of the time, like I keep Gemini up just to do pictures alone because it's so good at, Banana's so good at pictures. I keep it up just for that. And I pay for not the highest tier on the other ones, but I pay for the normal tier on the other ones. And I think that they're all have what ChatGPT is still good at is generalized knowledge. And its deep search is different than Claude's deep search. And so every now and then when I want to do a deep search, I'll just do deep search on all three. And then I'll ask Claude to combine them because Claude's pretty good at combining different versions. But if you told me you could only have one on a desert island, yes, Claude would be the one I would take today. Yep.
Got it. Thanks.
Well, we've hit the top of the hour. I will stay along for anyone else that wants questions, but I will let everyone else go that needs to go. Thank you so much for everybody that joined. It's been really, really fun. We got through all the problems of the live demo.
Brilliant. Hey, do you have any clients that are using Cowork as part of it's obviously very productive for you. Do you have any clients that are
I do.
leveraging it in
I'm already doing work with customers to help put Claude teams in, put it across all of their team, and build custom plugins / skills that they can share and use. So when I saw that today, that the plugins are going to be part of the enterprise sharing,
Yeah,
that is
that's
a big
brilliant.
deal. That's a huge,
Brilliant.
huge deal. What just came up today in the webinar is a huge deal. Before, you had to share them with a zip file and you had to download them and re-upload them and all, and that's just a pain in the butt. But now if you can share them across your enterprise team or enterprise, that's a big deal.
Yeah. It's just so new. I wasn't sure if you had that, had it a use case for it in with a client, and the answer is yes. Then that's
I was
fantastic.
ready to do it, and when it came out, I started selling, and it sells really well.
I love it.
Any
Well,
other
thank you so
questions?
much.
Thank you, Ted. Glad to be on.
I appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thanks again.
Okay, bye.